This morning, I have the privilege of pulling together a couple of people who I actually admire and appreciate their wisdom and expertise in the area of who God is. This week, we want to look at a lot of the misconceptions, or some of the misconceptions that we have of God. And I brought with me Glenda Fish. Many of you already know Glenda, one of our board members here at Calvary Church, also a former pastor and a prof at Trent University. So great to have Glenda with us here today. And a friend of mine, Dr. Joshua Samuel, who pastors maybe, but also is a prof at Master's College and Seminary here in town. And a good friend of mine, we went to school together many moons ago. And so it's great to have both of you here today with us. So maybe in a really quick way, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, some of your upbringing in the church, really quick, and then people will have a better understanding of who you are.
Well, surprisingly, I grew up in the United Church. It was a fairly evangelical United Church. It was just a small town, and so how many churches can you have? But my mother was actually quite evangelical, and so she ensured that I went to a Christian camp every summer and had that kind of environment. And so I've been a Christian sort of from dot. And just have always endeavored to serve the Lord in whatever capacity I can.
Yeah, and you are a former pastor.
That's true. I was a pastor for, I don't know, I've lost track. I don't know, it was something like 12 years. And I was always bivocational. I worked and pastored. And then at some point along the line, it boiled down to one career, not two.
Yeah, and so it's great to have you join, and you've been a part of Calvary for how many years now?
Since 2007.
Okay, so it's great to have you with us. Josh, what about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in a fairly Christian home. My mom was Holy Ghost Pentecostal, speaking in tongues so much that I thought that was our language from back home in India. And then my dad was actually a pastor's kid. His dad was like a denominational leader within a Pentecostal denomination in India. So I grew up in that context, born and raised in Toronto, and I grew up in an Indian Pentecostal church. Eventually felt the call of the Lord, went to Master's College and Seminary, studied there, did a lot of graduate work, pastored a POC church in Toronto called Malvern Christian Assembly, and did some itinerant ministry, published a book on the Holy Spirit in worship music preaching in the altar. And now I just finished 6 years of teaching at Master's College and Seminary. I teach Bible and theology courses, and I'm the director of worship and creative arts ministry there.
That's awesome. So it's good to have both of you here with us today. I'm looking forward to our discussion as we get into all of these questions. All right, so the first topic I kind of want to address here is I think it's a misconception in North America oftentimes. I know it is for me when I was growing up, that I often pictured God as a white male. And so, first of all, why don't we talk, Glenda, how did you picture God when you were growing up?
Well, I have to admit that I pictured him something kind of akin to a Santa Claus figure, a sort of an old, wise man, probably with a white beard, kind of like Santa Claus. And the funny thing about that for me, if you know anything about my background, was that I didn't grow up with Santa Claus. I mean, of course, Santa was in the air. You can't be in Canada and Santa Claus not in the air. But my mother in particular was very deliberate about prioritizing faith in God. And so she didn't want to be promoting anything that wasn't actually true. And so I didn't really grow up with Santa Claus, and yet I think because Santa Claus is kind of in the air, that was kind of my image. And I suppose too, just the sense that God has been there forever and He's all-knowing, and sort of taking that image and applying it to God.
Yeah, and no doubt, I think we've all seen images like that where God is almost an older figure with a white beard, white hair, white flowing robe maybe, or whatever, with a big sword or something in his hand, or a bag of gifts. I can easily see how you could have arrived at a concept of God like that. Josh, what about you? How did you see God growing up?
Yeah, growing up, I was born and raised in Toronto, and so I'll always remember the Jesus of Nazareth film, and so watching that film it's a powerful film, and it's a white British guy, he speaks good King James version, red letter gospel language, right? And so that was kind of really influenced me. Visuals are very influential, and so that's probably how I picture Jesus growing up, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was, like I already alluded to, I was the same, that God, in my concept, and even Jesus in particular, was a white male.
Yeah.
And whether it was God being an older figure or Jesus being, a 30-some-year-old white male with a brown beard and flowing hair, that was kind of the concept of God. Now, that's not who God really is, though. So how should we be picturing God?
All right. Josh is looking at me, so I guess I'll dive in.
Sure, go for it.
And I guess that, as I thought about this question, how did it evolve? And I guess, when we're children, we kind of, maybe this is why it's partly sort of a Santa Claus image, because we go to God with our wish list. God, give me this, and then as I mature, or as we mature, and then I turn to Scripture, and I just started to learn more and more about the characteristics of God. Then He became less and less Santa Claus with the sack of gifts, and He became much more multifaceted, and there were so many other aspects to His character that then I think that sort of Santa Claus-ish image just kind of gradually faded into the background, where it doesn't even exist anymore, because I understand, through Scripture, that God is so much more than that.
Yeah, for sure. So Josh, anything to add to that?
Yeah, how should we picture God? That's a amazing question. This is a question that has been asked throughout church history in some ways, right? You think about the iconoclast controversy, right? And there's moments where people wanted to destroy images. Some people loved images. Do images, statue detract from God? I remember going to a Roman Catholic church a while ago, and in the front of the altar had Jesus on a cross, but he had like serious abs, and so it was like kind of showing the powerful Jesus. I remember going to India, and there was actually a Jesus film, and the character that played Jesus was an Indian man. And so it really got me thinking about, what should God look like? What should we portray Jesus as? And so people like J.I. Packer in the book Knowing God really addresses this issue in light of, for instance, the Ten Commandments. You shall not have any, images to reflect God. And so he actually really unpacks that and really provides a pretty convincing argument that images really can mislead us. He uses the example of Aaron building, that animal, the bull, to kind of represent getting through the Red Sea, to portray Yahweh's strength. But even that minimizes other things about the character of God. The joy of the Lord, His peace, His righteousness. So images actually can be pretty misleading for us. And so I think we have to be aware of that. And because they can mislead us, it can minimize other aspects of who He is. And so here's the thing. We got to ask ourselves, what does the Scripture say? What does the Scripture say about who Jesus looks like? Because He's the manifestation of God that we can see,
right, that
we were shown, right? And so we're not told what His nose looks like, His hair looks like, His knees look like. The physical attribute of Jesus we're told about? He's circumcised. That's what we're told about what Jesus looks like. Okay, so that's what the biblical writers wanted to know about what Jesus looked like, that God made flesh. He was circumcised. That's what we're told. We're not told if He's black or white or, Chinese or Asian or whatever, British accent. We're told that He was circumcised. Why? That's what we needed to know, that He was a good Jew in fulfillment of the Hebrew Bible prophecies. And that was crucial for us to know. All that other stuff that we get into debates on, and you can find YouTube videos on, spend hours, thinking about what does Jesus look like, the Turin, the Shroud of Turin, all those stuff. The biblical writers want you to know that He's Jewish.
Yeah. And
He was a good Jewish man. And so what should we know about Jesus is that He's in fulfillment of the Hebrew Scriptures, and He was human. And when we start getting into all these debates of, what he looked like, we're actually getting to a place where we're actually can be misled into the character of God, and which I think is what you've been trying to convey over these past few sermons. And so I think the main thing that the scriptures want us to know is that he was human. And so because of that, he is our great high priest, right? Hebrews chapter 4. It says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. He's human. That's the most crucial thing that we need to know. And the circumcision element shows, hey, he was a good Jew, fulfillment of the Hebrew scriptures. And so we can identify with this God who's come in the flesh.
Right. So when we're looking at Jesus, the God-man, yeah, he was all human, very human. And I think in some respects that helps us understand the fact that that Hebrew passage talks about the fact that he's able to relate to what we go through, and I think that's very helpful when we're looking at the one passage that comes to my mind is the John chapter 4:24, where it talks about talks about the fact that God is spirit, and I think when I read through that and study that passage of scripture, that's hard. You can't define it. And I think for me, it's a concept that, again, it's just another point where I go, I can't define this God. Like, he is beyond our imagination. Right. Job is confronted with that blatantly when he's talking with God. God never answers Job's question, but just overwhelms Job with how awesome he is.
Yeah.
And I think the concept of God, I try not to define him as like you were saying, with facial features or anything of that nature. Yeah. I find him as something greater than I can grasp.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah. Now, are there any other benefits or challenges? Let's maybe look at some of the benefits of seeing Jesus in that Hebrew 4 passage. Are there any benefits in us seeing Jesus as one that we can relate to, or kind of putting him into our context? Is there benefits in doing that?
I think it makes Jesus in particular more relatable, and we begin to be able to see how he fits, who he could potentially fit into our culture. How, what kinds of decisions he would make. The sort of the what would Jesus do kind of movement that we had a number of years ago. But at the same time, I think that we have to recognize that there are real limitations to doing that, because just every time we try to sort of limit God into a particular mold, then we are going to miss something. We're going to, if we view him as a judge, then we're going to miss God's love and other attributes. But if we only picture him as this very loving character, then we might miss, for example, the judgment side. And so, I think that there, on one hand, it can be helpful, but we have to recognize only to a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to that, Josh?
Yeah, and I think, you just compared to maybe the most powerful image we often use within Christian churches, of course, Jesus on the cross, or, the empty cross. It can go both ways, right? If you put him on the cross, which you may have found in certain churches, it can kind of convey maybe his suffering and his willingness to identify with us, which is excellent. But it can minimize his power, his majesty. Likewise, maybe if he's an empty cross, maybe we're missing other elements of the character of God. So I think we just need to be careful. I think we just need to be careful that we don't limit the qualities and characteristics of God to only one or two images that we favor. And so I think that's why what you're doing with this sermon series of uncovering all the various characteristics of God is so crucial, because we need to have a more educated church that can kind of respond to challenges to who's the God that we serve.